To us from the remote regions of Kentucky, where he meditates, writes stories, howls at the moon with his pack of beagles, and in hot summers he retires to Alaska where he's a fishing guide. So please welcome to the Kentucky Home Front Porch, Mark Keller.
Lucky to be from Kentucky. This is just wonderful music, and you ever just wonder how we got to be who we are, where we are? There's so many other situations we could have been born into, but look at us. We've got it good. We've got it good. About year 2000, I had my first season with this fishing lodge in southeast Alaska. I'm a migratory animal, as Bob was just indicating. I spend my falls and winter months here in Kentucky. I can't think of a better place to be. In 2000, it was getting close to July 4th weekend, and the lodge owner pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, Chase Mark," he said, "we'd like to have a little 4th of July ceremony around the flagpole. Could you come up with something a little patriotic? We'll have a little ceremony with the guests there, and then we'll shoot off some fireworks into the sea and come back and eat watermelon." I said, "Well, I don't know what I can do, but I'll come up with something." And I got to reflecting on it the next day while I was out in the water, and I remembered some years ago, I was in a school operation where I was teaching people how to make wooden bows. It was a part of a society for primitive technology. And people would get together in these rendezvous, and some would teach how to make napping flint points. And my thing was bows, and I just was fascinated with the bow, stick and string. It's such a simple piece of technology, but so amusing and entertaining. And I needed hickory wood. It was one of the best woods to use as a beginner wood because it's nice, straight grain. You could learn on that. Go to difficult woods like Osage or whatever you want to choose. But hickory was my favorite for the schools. And I hooked up with this farmer down there who had a stand of beautiful, straight-grained hickory on top of a mountain called Hog Knob. It was the second highest point in Breckinridge County. He said, "I'll make a deal with you. If you'll go up there and we'll pick out a good tree, one that suits you." He said, "If you'll cut me out a few of those splits or staves that I can make a bow out of, and you teach me out," he said, "you can have a whole tree." I said, "Well, let's go." So we went up there and carried a chainsaw and a bag with splitting wedges made of iron, and we had a 9-pound hammer, and we went up on Hog Knob, and it was a long way up, and we selected a beautiful straight-grained tree and felled it and cut it into 3 lengths of 6 feet. And then we proceeded to split the logs in half lengthwise, rails, split rail fence, see the picture, and then split the halves in half until we're down about 3 inches wide, 6 feet long, and they weigh a lot. So I said, "I tell you what, Tommy, I'm going to come back tomorrow and pick these up. Let's just stack them." And the next morning, sure enough, I got to the bottom of the Hog Knob, couldn't drive up it. So I started walking, and when I got out of the truck, I had these 6 index cards, and they were fluorescent pink and yellow and green, and on the backs of these cards, I had written the Gettysburg Address. I was in this rail splitting mood. And my Spanish teacher had taught us that if you will get excited and recite your Spanish in voz alta, which means out loud and real loud, it will go better into your memory. He explained to us that adrenaline in the brain is like ink in a typewriter ribbon. If there's no ink in the ribbon, you can type all day and it leaves no impression. But get you some fresh ink, fresh ribbon, and you get impressions. He said, that's what adrenaline's like. So get out of your desk, stand alongside there, and you shout that out. And we did. "Buenos dias, señor! ¿Cómo está usted?" And we would yell, and it worked. So I thought, that's what I'm going to do with these cards today. So on the way up the mountain, Hog Knob, I'm out shouting to the tops of my lungs. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent, and so forth. I made 5 trips, up and down. When I picked up the sticks, I put the cards away, and as I came down, there was this deer trail I crossed every time those 5 trips. I thought, my goodness, what a place for some Indian to harvest a deer. And I looked up in the tree, and I saw this great big white smile. Around the smile was camouflage, and there sat a photographer with all of his equipment. And I started to apologize, and I thought, this poor guy came all the way from Louisville in the dark, and he crawled up here with a flashlight, and he's going to catch some wildlife in his pristine situation. Well, Well, I've told that story many times, and I don't know what his version is, but that's my version. And I had a little carpenter friend who said, every story's like a board. Ain't never one so wide, it ain't got another side. And I wonder what his side of that story is. But anyhow, that's my side. I think I heard a woman down here whisper to her husband, I wonder if he ever learned it. Well, I said something like this, 80. I'm imagining 08 out there on the edge of Gettysburg. 87 years ago, he said, our fathers brought forth on this nation a new continent, and on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We are now engaged in a great civil war, testing whether this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met here on a great battlefield of that war, and we are here to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. Those brave men, living and dead who struggled here, they have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or to detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, rather, the living, to dedicate ourselves to that unfinished work that they who fought here thus far so nobly advanced. It is for us, rather, the living, to dedicate ourselves to that great task lying before us. That these honored dead, from them we take an increased devotion to that cause for which these dead gave their last full measure of devotion. We here highly resolve to not let these dead have died in vain, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln.